Hey everyone, this is Finn, and in this tutorial I am going to show you how to use the simple materials in Blender. You're also going to be able to customize them to tweak them however you want. Let's start by deleting this cube. Delete by right-clicking and pressing delete. And then we're going to want to add a UV sphere, and how we do that is by going up to Add, Mesh, and UV sphere. We're going to leave it the way it is, and then we are just going to go up to Object and Shade Smooth. Now we see it as a smooth orb object without any color. Now let me introduce you to the different 3D views, the different ways we can shade our object. If you hold Z, you'll be able to see that there are 4 different ways that we can do that. Right now we are on solid. You see this object as a solid color. There is an effect of lighting, but it isn't real lighting. As you can see, no matter how we move it, or even if we move the light source itself, it will not be any different. It is just the same shade. Hold Z again, and then we'll go down to Material Preview. This is a view that lights up your material. It also isn't affected by light, but it gives you a look of what the material looks like in a bright lit way. Hold Z and then go to Wireframe to your left. This lets you see the bare bone components of your mesh, the edge loops and the faces. This makes it easier if you need to see through the object because it is transparent and it lets you have a different perspective of the object. Now go up to rendered, and this is the view that actually shows us how our texture is being rendered onto our object. This one is affected by lighting. If you move your lights, you can see that the lighting is affected by it. Now I'm going to set up some lighting right now by pressing Z on my number pad, or by pressing the accent key under the escape key and going to top. This is the top view. I'm going to take my light source and move it down here. Then I want to press Shift D to duplicate that. And move this right to the left behind this sphere, and then I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate it again and put one on the other side. This is a very standard way of lighting up your scene. It gives you a very good view, and it's a little bit too high right now, so what we're going to do is press 1 to give us front view. Then we are going to hold Shift and select all of our light sources and bring it down. Basically just tweak it to how you want it. That looks pretty good to me. I'm going to keep it that way. We can see what it looks like when it's lit from different angles. Next, you're going to want to select your sphere. You're going to want to click this Material Properties tab over here. This is where you're going to be adding and tweaking any of your materials. With the object selected, press New right here, and it creates a material. It's the same as the material before because it is the default, but as you can see now, we have different settings. Let's go ahead and click this. Let's go ahead and name this material Basic Material, and now with our material created, we can adjust the settings. We can take this base color and change it any way we want. It's a pretty color. I personally like green, so there we go. Subsurface is a little more complicated. It allows us to add another tint of color to the sphere depending on the lighting. This number determines how much subsurface we actually have showing. And what I mean by that is until we type something, there's nothing. But if I type in 0.15, it loads, and you can see now that it has more of a grayish, whitish tint, kind of a light tint when you see the lighting hit it. It's kind of white, and that is because our subsurface color is white. If we change it to something like a deep blue, you'll see that it slightly changes it there. If you want to adjust the subsurface, you can pull it back and forth to adjust how much it affects your material. But I find somewhere around 0.2 for this is a pretty color. I like it. I'm kind of just adjusting to whatever I want. Then we have our metallic setting, and you could increase that to make your orb shinier or very smooth. Specular, when you adjust that back and forth, it takes away some of that shine. It gives it more of a matte look. Specular Tint, when you have specular greater than 0, this changes whether or not the color tone is more white or more of a dark color. If you see that, I'm going to take away specular, keep it 0.5, keep it right in the middle there. There are a lot of other options here. I'm not going to go through every one of them, but I encourage you to play around. The last two settings in the materials that I'm going to show you are Emission and Alpha. Emission is basically a very cool effect where you can make it glow. Right now it is black because we don't have any emission in this material, but if I change that to white, you'll see it glows a very bright white color. It's very overpowering. But if I take this little eyedropper tool here and I go up, I select this blue color, it'll start glowing blue. If you decrease the color to black, the emission disappears. Alpha is just how transparent the texture is. So if you put it to 0, it's going to be black because it's not going to detect a texture. And 0.5, you can see it is kind of dim there. And 1 is fully opaque. The last thing I'm going to show you before wrapping up this tutorial is that you could also change the settings over surface. That's going to change all of these settings down here because this is the set of settings that you have brought up. This is the type of surface that this material is, and these are the settings for that material. If you click that and we go to Tune, you'll see that it changes it. The color is white. If we change the color, it's a different shader, and by shader I mean it is a different way that the light and that the texture of the material turns out. If we change this to glossy, it has a very, very shiny looking texture. And by texture, I mean the visual feel of it, not the actual material itself. If I change it to glass, it is the same kind of shine, but it is a lot more dim because it is a glass-like material. And if you go to Mix Shader, you can actually mix multiple. So let's just say I want a glass, or excuse me, I want a transparent under a glass shader, and that makes it a transparent glass orb. But I do need to make sure that my alpha clip is my blend mode and my shadow mode.